Hey, welcome back, everybody. I wanted to spend a little bit of time today talking about speaking at conferences. I started speaking at conferences probably 6, maybe 7 years ago at this point, maybe a little further back. And it's always been one of the things I actually really enjoyed about the kind of the field I'm in. Um, I've spoken about everything from, high level technical stuff like automation, scripting, things like that, to business and leadership subjects, which I've been doing a lot of lately, infosec, and any kind of thing that I've been really interested in the moment, I guess. And I've gotten to speak in front of really small groups, really big groups, and I've got to travel around a lot as a result. So obviously, I enjoy it, and I want to share some of that with people, and maybe help them get into it if it's something they want to do. For me, I do it for a few different reasons. One, I've always found that one of the best ways to learn how to do something really, really well, or learn really a lot about a subject, is to try to teach somebody else how to do it. When we do things on our own, or when we're learning stuff, we fill in our head with a lot of assumed knowledge or some other things. And when you try to teach somebody else something, they tend to ask a lot of questions that maybe you wouldn't think about, and they have a different perspective on something. So if you put yourself out there and teach somebody something, you tend to learn it a bit better. And just doing the research and trying to fill in your thoughts tends to get you a lot more data, which is pretty cool. Um, Speaking at conferences means that you're at conferences, and that means that you're surrounded by some really smart people typically, and I think that's fantastic. Going to conferences is something I very much love, and I credit for a lot of my success in my career. And it's because I've been able to learn from a lot of really, really smart people, and network and engage with people who have done the jobs I want to do, or have found new, unique ways to do stuff. So, being part of that community and getting to spend some time there is really important to me. And usually, if you're speaking, you get in for free, which is really, really nice, because we don't have unlimited training budgets to access conferences. So, any way I can help supplement that for myself and for the companies I work for is fine by me, and always a plus. But also, public speaking is a good skill. Even if you don't exercise it by actually speaking in public, generally learning to communicate, present, talk about a subject in a approachable manner, I think is a really good skill, and it's something that I'm definitely still working on. As you can see by some of these videos, still lots of ums and ahs and things like that. But I'm a pretty casual person, so I just roll with it. Now, there are definitely some downsides, right? It can be super scary. I went to a conference last year where I was speaking. I think it was InfoSec World, and I brought one of my coworkers with me, and he was hanging out with me before my session. And he's like, "You seem super nervous." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm terrified. Like, anytime I'm before a presentation, I'm usually pacing around. I have a tendency to like check, double check, and triple check to make sure the like presentation slideshow remote's working properly. I drink a bunch of water. And it's a whole thing. I'm not a big public speaking person. I like working with people and talking to people about stuff and having conversations about things I love. But jumping up in front of a group of people and kind of just telling them stuff is still very, very awkward. Even doing presentations like this, where I'm looking at a camera in my own office, a place I'm really comfortable. My brain just is always full of doubt and wondering if this stuff even is worth talking about, or if I'm making sense, or if anybody even cares about it. So there's a lot of internal kind of challenges to just putting yourself out there. It's risky, right? You got to be vulnerable, but being vulnerable is what makes us human, and I think that's something to embrace. So you kind of just push through it. Um, you might end up actually just liking it a lot, and it can be really time consuming. I like presenting. I've found that I like going to all the conferences that I can kind of squeeze into my schedule, but I still have a day job. So until somebody pays me to just wander around and talk at things full time, I still have to do my job, which I love. And I love working with my team and things like that. But yeah, there's definitely some weekend hours put into putting together decks and coming up with new ideas and researching stuff you think people will care about. So if you want to do it a lot, you got to be willing to jump on airplanes and make things happen. Um, and then sometimes, you'll get rejected. I don't get accepted to every, event that I want to speak at. I remember at one of the conferences last year, it was kind of a bummer. I was pretty jazzed. That looked like a cool conference. I was really hoping to speak at it. And I had never spoken at it. I hadn't even attended the conference. I just knew it was a really good one. So I was really excited. And I got my hey, thanks, but no thanks kind of message. And then the next day, I saw a bunch of people that I really respected putting up their announcements that they would be speaking at the conference. And that stings a little bit because, on one hand, you're like, well, yeah, why would have they accepted me? That person's amazing. I want to listen to them talk too. That's why I wanted to go. But on the other, you're kind of bummed because you got rejected, and that's just part of life, I think. So you have to be okay being told that, hey, not this time. It's usually just because either the subject you wanted to do maybe wasn't right for the conference. And I've definitely seen that happen and gone back and said, oh, yeah, my content was totally wrong after I being an attendee at the show. And sometimes you're just, just not the right fit at the right time, or somebody else got there first, or had a slightly different twist, maybe. So don't get discouraged. Just keep submitting stuff. I don't expect to get accepted everywhere, and that's okay. So, how do you get started if you decide? Usually, what will happen is events will have a call for presentations, a call for papers, a call for training, something like that. You can see I kind of rushed on this. The training got cut off. That's weird. Um, but that's what you're going to be looking for. You can either go to the websites directly if you know the conference that you want to speak at. I like to speak at things I want to attend to, so usually I'm looking up when their dates are and stuff like that. Um, it varies depending on the conference, how far in advance they do it. Some are a few months for smaller events. For really large events, it might be 6, 8, 12 months in advance. Sometimes further. I'm sure if you're a big keynote or something like that that books far out in advance. Um, but either way, you find the call for presentations. Reach out to the conference if you're not sure. They'll just tell you typically. Some conferences are invite only. You can't necessarily apply to speak at every conference. Some conferences only give spots to sponsors. I don't really like speaking at those kinds of conferences. I like conferences that aren't sales pitches. So I tend to not do the other kind. Um, but anyway, you find it out, you submit your idea, and you wait for an approval. Most of the time, they're just asking for like a synopsis. You don't really need to turn in a full presentation typically, in my experience. They just want to know what you want to talk about, what the value of it is, who the target audience is to make sure it syncs up with who they're expecting at their conference, making sure you're adding value to the people that are paying to be there. And then once they say yes, you build out your presentation. Different conferences have different formats for this. I've spoken at conferences where they are very, very stringent. They want you to present in, X, Y, and Z order. There's mandatory slides that are there. You have to have disclaimers. It's on a very standardized format. There's mandatory content that has to be included and explained a certain way. And I've spoken at other conferences where they didn't even ask me to see the deck before the thing. You can just build it out however you want and just run with it. Both are good for different things. The highly structured ones are nice if you've not done it before because it sets a real good standard. The ones where you kind of have free reign are also super fun because you can just do whatever you want. You can put a lot more personality into the conference or into the deck, and that's always super nice. But none have been bad. I haven't really run into any situations where the formatting is like insurmountable, where they've just wanted something that I wasn't comfortable with. Um, I have run into situations where they wanted me to present something where I just wasn't kind of down for it. Not because it was bad content, just because I didn't think I was the right speaker for it. It's like, yeah, that's cool. I could talk about that, but there's probably a billion people you could get that would actually love to talk about that versus me, who would sort of just phone it in so I could come to the conference. So be aware of that kind of situation where they might say, hey, we'd love to have you speak, but maybe tweak your idea and just make sure it's something you really want to talk about. It'll come off better. And then just go and have a super fun time. Present, have fun, be part of the group. Sometimes conferences have special events for their presenters the night before or the days of, or they might have like a lounge for speakers to go hang out at. Go network, be with the other speakers, go mingle at the conference, meet people. It's super fun. Some general tips. Start with smaller events if it's your first time. I really love events like B-Sides because some of the smaller ones, especially, they might only have 3 or 4 speakers during the day, and you're going to get some really cool content from people who aren't just presenting the same stuff over and over. They tend to be very passion-oriented topics, which is neat. You can always partner up with people who've either done it before or haven't, and you just kind of split up the workload. And at least you have one person on stage who's a fan with you. I think that'd be cool. Practice before you go. Not because maybe you don't know the content, but what I've always found really hard is getting the timing right on presentations. When I get nervous, I have a tendency to talk really, really fast. And when I get excited, I have a tendency to talk really, really fast. So if you're supposed to give like a 50-minute presentation and you're not practiced and you don't really have the timing or the quantity of content you need, um, it gets hard, and then you end really early, and that's not great for the conference. It's not great for you. It's not great for the audience. So practice a little. I've learned over time that having like a few filler spaces, or not filler, but a few sections of the presentation that you can easily trim or add to on the fly is really helpful for this. So, like, I might add a note that says, "Hey, you can tell this story here." If you want to add, another minute or two, if you feel like you're getting ahead of your pace and you need to slow it down a little, tell this story. Or if you're behind, skip the story, keep moving on. It's not gonna fundamentally change the presentation, but it adds a little if you have the time for it, that kind of stuff. But practice your timing. Um, Use tools like speaker notes in PowerPoint. Like, I have some set up right now. You see me glancing at them. I'm trying my best not to just stare at them and read them verbatim, obviously, because it's a bit more engaging if you don't. But use those tools. Check with the organizers if that stuff will be available for you, though. I definitely presented at one conference recently or a bit back, where I had speaker notes set up because I hadn't practiced probably as much as I wanted to. It was just busy and things like that. And my timing was still a little off. So I had the notes there to mostly keep me on track from a timing perspective, not for the content. Like, I knew the content inside and out. But when we got there, the notes weren't available. Though the way the setup was there wasn't a monitor for speaker notes. There was a monitor that you could see the presentation, so you could stop looking behind you. But it gets a little wonky. Overall, it went great. I got good feedback. Everybody had a good time, so it wasn't a big deal. But check in and use the tools that are available to the best of your ability if you want. But mostly just present stuff you love. This is one of the things that, like, early on when I started presenting, I was just jazzed that people would let me talk at places and I could go to places for free, and that was cool. Um, but that gets tedious really quick, and it doesn't turn out as well, right? It becomes a lot more like work and a lot less like play. So now I'm pretty good about just wanting to present stuff that I really care about. So I might present about 2 or 3 different kinds of topics this year that I'm super hyped on. If somebody has an idea for something they want me to talk about and I'm interested in it, I'd probably do it. But I probably wouldn't travel to just present on something I'm kind of meh about. Like, I don't want to be a mediocre presenter. If I'm going to spend my time and go out there, and I know what it's like to spend your training budget to go to a conference, I don't want to be the guy who showed up and provided something mediocre for the money somebody spent, right? Like, that's not cool. So just stick with stuff you really love. It'll be a lot more fun for you. It'll be a lot better for the audience. And I think everybody deserves to, share in that kind of passion. So give it a shot. But that's kind of it. There's cool tools out there like Sessionize that allow you to build out, speaker profiles and find events. But get out there, check out the things that you want to go to. Give it a shot sometime. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of online virtual ones if you want to try virtual stuff first. In my opinion, virtual stuff is harder than in person because you get no audience feedback, and that's really, really rough. But you can do stuff like this also. Record yourself, give it a shot, present, see how you like it. But mostly just go have fun if it's something you're interested in. Put yourself out there. It's good for you. Have a great night, everybody.